Hi, everyone. Good morning, and thank you for joining us for our webinar today. This is the text factor, how to ensure maximum responses and ensure delivery. Today, we are taking a look at texting for recruiting and retention for your agents, that you're looking to recruit and those that are already in your office, and how you can get them to engage and get better delivery and responses from your text campaigns. So we just want to take a second and introduce ourselves today. My name is Jenna. I work in the product here at Brokerkit, and I'm joined by Jim Turner, our CEO and co-founder, and I'll let him tell you a little bit about his experience here.
Hey, everybody. My name is Jim. And so Brokerkit, we help residential real estate brokerages ramp up their growth by improving their agent recruiting and retention. Big part of that is just making sure you cut through the noise and your messages are delivered, and texting is part of that. And that's what we're here to talk about today.
Perfect. And as Jim mentioned, we're talking about the challenge. So in today's real estate market, it's tough to cut through the noise, get your messages delivered, and get responses from agents. This can be both agents that you are looking to recruit and those that are already in your office. Every time that you send out a text and you want it to get engagement so that people are getting your message and they're hearing what you have to share. So you're going to see a quick poll on your screen. And so it says, do you find it a challenge to get responses from your emails and calls from prospective and current agents? So I'll give you a second to go ahead and answer that.
And then while you're answering it, that could be any kind of recruiting, communications, outreach, communications with any kind of recruits, or just your own agents trying to get them to show up to training events. Is it hard to, cut through the noise, make sure they hear it, and get replies from people? So the poll results are coming in, and they're pretty definitive that it's yes. Pretty much it's 100%, and everyone is experiencing a challenge with getting responses to their emails and calls from prospective and current agents both. So we will move on because it's pretty clear and definitive.
Yes. Awesome. So the promise then, get replies from your agents and recruits via text and keep things moving forward. We want to share some insight with you on why SMS is so valuable to your business, both for recruiting and retention, and how you can keep your text getting responses and you can keep people engaged and really working with your business in any way. Awesome. So the first, we're going to go through 5 hot principles. So we're going to talk about 5 things that you can do with your SMS. And the first of
and
those,
MMS. So just texting.
Oh, yes. Yep. Not just SMS, MMS as well. So your messages here. And so the first thing we're going to talk about is just the value of texting. So texts cut through the noise and they get replies. So you'll see a couple graphs here. 98% of text messages are opened. That is a huge number of communication that's not only, being seen, but it's an instant channel of communication. And so as you see, 90% of text messages are read within 3 minutes. It's a huge opportunity to communicate with people real time and have real, back and forth engagement. So you're not waiting that lag time of email, and you're having the opportunity to chat with them right away. So that can be really valuable for your agents. Like Jim had mentioned, you want them to show up to training, or you have something big going on in the office and you need to know if they're going to be available or what's going on with them. So this is a great opportunity there, and also for recruiting. So you can meet people where they are right now. You can hear, what they have going on, and you can kind of build that relationship. So the next graph you'll see is the SMS and email performance. SMS is outperforming email in a lot of ways. You can see them here. So the open rate, the CTR, which is the click-through rate, the conversion rate, and the read rate. In all of those, SMS is outperforming email, and they're cutting through the noise, they're getting to their intended target, and they're creating an opportunity for engagement.
Awesome. So moving on to the hot principle number 2 here.
Yes, hot principle number 2. It's a very exciting one. Maintain your contact list. So we have this one here because it's a really, basic thing that you need to do to make sure you're creating a list and creating your reach outs for both your agents and your prospective recruits, so that you can communicate with them, and making sure you have active and current lists is just a fundamental way to do that. So one of the ways we have listed here is you see the MLS data. So use current lists. MLS data is a great way to do this because agents are going to keep their information up to date in MLS. That's how they're keeping their business going. That's how they're doing their business. So MLS is a great way to make sure you have correct contact information. And a lot of times the agents will put their cell phone numbers in MLS rather than, their office numbers, because again, it's the way that they're doing business. So if they're listing a home they're going to want to have their right information on there so they can get a hold of, so they can be gotten in touch with. There we go. All right. So use cell phone numbers. Like I just mentioned, MLS is a great way to get that. Another thing you can do is check with the free tools to see if you're communicating with landlines or cell phone numbers. This is great because you want to make sure when you're texting, you're using cell phone numbers and you're not sending to landlines as much as you can help that. So there are a lot of free tools online. This one you see on your screen is a great one. You can look up one-to-one numbers, and so you can put the number in and see the carrier. You can see if it's a cell phone. You can actually see usually you can see the name of the person with the phone number as well.
And I would say just a couple more things. So if you just Google on free phone number lookup, you'll see this is one of kind of many tools out there. There's lots of them. And then back to the MLS data, most of the numbers are going to be cell numbers, honestly, because people want to get calls about their listings, but they aren't all. And what we find is a lot of the numbers are landline numbers. So, it behooves you to kind of check it, especially on ones where there's no, very low or no responses or undelivered. Yeah, that's something you want to kind of check out.
Yes, definitely. And that kind of brings us into our next one, monitor the engagement. So obviously the goal of your text is to get responses. So making sure that you're keeping an eye on the text message engagement so you can see who's responding and who maybe isn't. And if they aren't responding, maybe go and find out, are you texting a landline? Is something else going on there? Do you have the wrong number? But keeping an eye on that engagement gives you the best opportunity for people to communicate back with you.
And then before I move on, I'm going to just show you for the Brokerkit customers, the way you would do that is I'm in a Brokerkit account here. If I go to the engagement filter, you can actually filter and see that we will track. You can filter on text replies or unsubscribes and change the time frame. And you can see who has kind of replied to text. Obviously, those are going to be some of your higher engagement, but we recommend that you also keep an eye on email, clicks, opens also, because ultimately the people that are clicking, opening emails, replying to text, these are going to be your most engaged people. They're going to be the best fit. But now the people that really have no engagement across all of those platforms, which you're going to be able to kind of see here, over a longer period of time, if you look over a longer period of time and there's no engagement across any of the channels, those are ones maybe that you want to consider kind of culling from the list, so to speak.
Yeah, perfect. And the next thing we have is based on that as well. If you're using something like Brokerkit, you can go ahead and update your contacts. So, use current lists, do everything you can to maintain your list. And that includes keeping your contacts up to date. If someone responds that they're no longer in the business or, they're not interested, anything like that, you want to make sure you're keeping your contacts up to date, move them where you're not going to be texting them. Some people just don't like to be texted, but maybe they want to be called. So maybe you want to remove them from your text list, but you want to keep them on your other list for emails or calls or whatever that might be. So just make sure you're updating your contact list. And especially as, the agents can change so quickly in a year. I think it's about 1/3 of agents might leave within their first year. And so we know that there's a huge change of active agents. So just being aware of that and keeping your list up to date is huge. We kind of already covered these. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, and then I'll kind of show you some real world examples, right? Another example of why things would change, and it would be probably more the email, is they moved brokerages, right? And they had a brokerage email you were mailing. So let's just talk about kind of how within Brokerkit you could keep your data up to date. So if you go to the data tab, so we have importers from MarketView Broker or Broker Metrics. These are file importers. We match and update off agent ID and email address. So if you have saved searches, you can just rerun them, re-import them. It'll match on agent ID or email, and then it will update office and production information and capture everything. If they have a new email and it matches on agent ID, just adds the new email. So that's the way you can keep them up to date. Now with our Realytics integration, you can define your search queries, and then you can do one-time imports off them, or just schedule a monthly update. Once you build the queries out, schedule the monthly updates, it's just going to run every month and make sure that contact information stays up to date for them. So that's going to automate kind of this process of having a current list.
Yeah, exactly. And then we go into the kind of quick don'ts here. We already talked about don't text landlines. There's different And I think we'll be chatting just a little bit about this later. But there is a trust score that you can have with your phone number. You want to make sure that you're, texting as much as you can, text cell phone numbers, and those free tools are great help for that. And then don't text people who ask to unsubscribe. So that's just being respectful of people who ask to opt out. All of these things are going to help you build relationships with the people in your contact list, which is really what you want to do for engagement. You're not just texting, one time to say, a sales pitch. You want to build a relationship over time, and you want to kind of nurture those relationships. So you're meeting people at the right time. It's not the right time for everyone at every point, but maybe in 6 months or a year, if you build that relationship, it would be the right time. So I'm going to have the next hot principle here.
Yeah, actually, just some comments before we move on. So in regards to texting people who don't text people that who asked unsubscribe. So again, tying this back to kind of how it works in Brokerkit. So anybody, if you're sending a text to someone, for instance, I'm gonna text Daniel here. He replies back, stop or unsubscribe. He will automatically be added to a suppression list for his number. So there's several stop words. There's a few more than that, which are in our help articles, but those are the most common. We just did want to point out, so that's automated within the system. If they reply back start, it'll resubscribe them. But you need to keep an eye out for the people that say something like, I do not wish to receive any more text from you. There's not going to be any automated opt-out. What we recommend would be in Brokerkit, you can track labels. So we'd recommend go in and add a label for the people that do not wish. So that way you can kind of filter them out of your list in the future. We also have an ability to kind of archive people out if you don't want them to receive any more communications in the future. So those will be a couple ways to kind of manage that depending on how you want to engage them. And also note that if somebody unsubscribes to bulk or campaign emails, it's an independent unsubscribe compared to kind of texting. So those are things that you probably want to keep an eye on as it relates to your contact list.
Yeah, absolutely. And just another note for Brokerkit is Jim was showing, how you can manage this in Brokerkit. If you do have someone who asks to unsubscribe, it's only if they use a keyword, it's only for that phone number that they did unsubscribe from. And if they ask for, they don't use a keyword, then you're kind of managing it more for all numbers. So you just be aware of that. If you think, maybe this person doesn't want communication at all, maybe you want to go ahead and put that label on, even if they did use the keyword.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, and then with that engagement filter I showed you earlier, you can filter on the people that did unsubscribe also. Okay, so that was hot principle number 2. On to hot principle number 3. Okay, so this one is, consider the content, right? So, and this is going to apply to kind of email too. Like the type of content has a huge impact on, how it's received. And honestly, these days, whether it gets delivered to, which is another topic. But a few a few kind of points around it. Number one, craft impactful messages, right? What does not work well these days is the spray and pray approach of just send generic messages, blast the whole MLS once a quarter, and expect a lot of people to reply back and say, like, hey, your brokerage sounds amazing. Where can I sign up? It's a little more competitive these days. So think of like, make it personal. What really works is back to one of our approaches within Brokerkit, we talked about kind of leveraging the MLS data is to if you have geographic locations like offices, build territories around the offices, maybe filter it down by production stats and things like that also. But then for whoever owns that office, whether it be an office manager, kind of a regional manager, or if you're a smaller brokerage, kind of the broker owner, think of that as a group of people that you want to build a relationship with and reach out in that way. Make it personal, right? Things like reach out to give them a congratulations after a transaction, right? Where after they close something. That's something, and if it looks like if you send it one-on-one, maybe you can automate it with tools like Brokerkit, but make it seem like it's kind of one-on-one communication, make it personal, add value to them, right? So maybe it's, hey, I saw that you had that kind of listing that closed. How are things going? Love to grab a cup of coffee, see if I can, kind of help out in any way. Your production's up, your production's down, maybe offer to kind of give them some coaching around how you could help them elevate their production, something like that. The other thing we found is conversational messages works best, and it's kind of in the same line, right? These goes for email too, like big marketing style emails you blast out, it's not going to get somebody. It's more like informational, but conversational. What you want to do is start a conversation with people, and that's with recruits, but honestly with your own agents, right? You want to keep in touch at a personal level with them. So, and that's what is so great about texting, right? It's not great for sending huge, long informational messages. It's great at starting a conversation. So think of short questions, 1 to 3 sentences, end on a question. And the reason you want to end on a question is that's what's going to get the reply. Okay. If you send them a big statement, don't expect a reply. You send them a short message that ends on a question, that's what's going to get them to reply to you, to really start that conversation and take it from there. A couple other tools that we want to recommend that are specific to our tool is use AI Assist, MMS, image text, and video text. So let me kind of jump out and give you some examples there. So I'm going to go into an agent and talk about how to do some of these things. So first of all, MMS. So we allow you to send not just an SMS, which is a text-based text message, but an MMS, which is an image-based text message. One thing that's really cool about this, we'll talk about this on the next slide, is it can be for longer messages, it can be efficient on how many segments it uses and therefore the cost, okay? But when an image pops up, a cool thing I've seen people do is just go into Canva, write a message in text, but make it as part of an image and text that. Works really, really well. Really, it's going to stand out. And then if you're texting your own agents about an event, go into Canva, build a little image of kind of an overview of that, text them out, right? It's really going to kind of stand out. It's going to pop a lot more than just a text-based message saying, hey, click on this link to hear more, right? They're going to hear it loud and clear. Okay, the next thing is AI Assist. So this is one of our newer features here at Brokerkit, but leverage that to help you write those personal messages. So think mass customization. So when you click this, it's going to pop up a prompt here where you can, we integrate with GPT-4, which is kind of, you need this, or I guess if you have Chat GPT Premium, the version is $20 a month, includes GPT-4. We've got it built in. We also have a prompt library with some pre-built prompts. So if you go here and filter on text, we give you some examples, but you can go ahead and drop them in and go ahead and change the tone or make them specific to your brokerage or market. So this would be an example of, compose a short message to schedule a meeting with a potential agent. And you can just say like, for my brokerage, and then put in there Acme Realty, whoever it is. And then what it's going to do is help you build it. Now, I will say one thing about OpenAI's GPT-4 is it tends to be kind of verbose. So you probably want to emphasize like short messages in it, or they can be kind of longer and they'll end up being kind of multiple segments. So this is a first draft. You probably want to play with it and emphasize, I did put the word short in it. Maybe you need to kind of emphasize the shortness a little more to get it to kind of shorten it down, but helps you really, customize the messages. And anything about the person, try to throw it in. Ask it to tailor it so that it's writing those kind of personal messages, but at scale, essentially. So think kind of mass personalization with people. The last thing is video. So we added the video recorder last year. You could send video emails, but we just launched the ability to send video text as well. So I have 2 monitors and I don't have this one set up. So I'm not going to show you, but this would be recording off of my video. You can also upload any video if you have any professional edited ones, and then you can go into your library and then it'll be at the team level. You can go in, choose a video. It's going to insert the link. We also automatically shorten that link as it's being sent. You could even combine that video with some text from AI Assist and send it. So the key is, you're going to stand out. Okay, make it personal with the video itself. And with kind of the way that you're sending it. Those are some of the things that we recommend you do to craft impactful messages. But there's a couple things we recommend you not do. Okay, so number one, avoid spam trigger words. Okay, so anything that's like all dollar signs, rockstar, all caps, these things can trigger spam flags and make sure your messages aren't delivered. So we recommend that you not do those. And that, by the way, applies to email, and even Indeed will do this on job postings too. Keep an eye on that. So Make your messages kind of professional. The next thing is, and we're going to tell you how, but there's some technical terms there, A to P, 10 to LC. We'll get into it in a little bit. We call it verified texting to put it into kind of human-centric wording. URLs, if you're texting URLs and you're not registered, they will get blocked. So keep an eye on those. But if you register properly, they can, and we'll show you how in a second. The next one, send it at a respectful time. We heard recently somebody saying, well, these people were upset that they got an email, a text at, a certain hour. And it's like, okay, well, would you have wanted to get that text at that hour? Just think about that, right? And that goes on to the next one. Follow the golden rule. Do unto others as you would want people to do unto you. Would you want a text, late at night or maybe on a Sunday? Maybe not. Just think of like when you would want to. Same thing with the content. Send people things that you think would be if you were receiving it and you're in their position, you'd think it's valuable and you'd want to reply. Okay, so that's hot principle number 3. Consider the content. Okay, number 4, keep an eye on your usage. This is another one where, okay, so we kind of touched on this, the whole concept of segments versus messages. But so back in the day, when texting started, and it was really even, when you first had your cell phone in the late 90s, it wasn't even a flip phone. Then it went to a flip phone, then a smartphone. Before it was a smartphone, texts were really short, okay? They were just text. You couldn't do emojis, images, any of that fancy stuff once you got your iPhone. So they were basically limited to 160 characters. Now, on a modern smartphone, you can send much longer ones. And in Brokerkit, we'll let you send much longer ones too. What it's doing is it's sending a bunch of segments behind the scene, joining it together at the end so it looks like one text. But know that all of those are segments and carriers bill by that. So we want to kind of point that out. Now, and this applies to Brokerkit, it's pretty Brokerkit centric, but really this applies to like everybody that's texting these days too, because the costs have gone up quite a bit on this channel, and people are, really keeping an eye on it. So especially with some of the compliance things we'll touch on a little bit. So let me just kind of show you a couple points on that. So when you're texting, so this goes back to, some of the verbose messages that you got to keep an eye on. If you send really long ones, okay, down here you see we have a counter, and we have a little tooltip that's going to explain how this works. But we're telling you now. So if I start typing in here, notice it's counting the number of characters and it's saying one segment because I'm under 160. Okay, if I type just normal characters like this and I type it to 160, it'll jump to 2 segments. But look, if I start throwing in emojis, it starts jumping like very quickly. Okay. And if I add in a bunch of emojis, you'll see it's going to start jumping to multiple segments really quickly, because these consume more data behind the scenes, and therefore they consume more segments. Okay. So if you, for instance, send a 10 segment text to 100 people, you really sent 1,000 texts behind the scenes. So keep an eye on that. Okay. We are going to warn you here. Also, once it becomes multi-segment with this little yellow message, and you're going to have your counter to keep an eye on it. But we just want to call that out. If you want to kind of track how you're doing month to date, you can also go to the billing page, and you will see your usage stats for both SMS and MMS broken out by messages and segments. And you can kind of see the difference. Maybe I sent 10 messages, but boy, it's 100 segments. That means it was 10 segment messages. So we want to make sure you keep an eye on it, and you can of course see last month too. But that's something it's something we got a lot of questions about. So we just wanted to make sure we took an opportunity to kind of clarify that and make sure we educated everybody on that concept of, what determines kind of usage billing. And all the Brokerkit plans include a certain amount of text, which is set to be about 75% of the users would be under that. And then the real heavy users would potentially pay some higher usage charges. So something you want to keep in a little bit. They're modest usage charges, really, so that the light users aren't subsidizing the heavy users. But that's how you want to keep an eye on it. Okay, so we're going to move on to hot principle number 5. Okay, and this is where we get Jenna, the master at this, back engaged here on verified texting. Okay, so I'm going to throw out the jargon first, then we're going to walk you through what does this mean in the real world. Okay, so we call it verified texting because we want to make sure we're not using too many acronyms. And I know you're probably wondering, wow, he's thrown out a bunch of acronyms. So, but I'm trying not to, okay? But that's just the nature of telecommunications. So we help you get your messages delivered, okay, with something called verified texting. Now, what is that in the real world? There's a real technical name for this. It's called A2P 10DLC. This is what the carriers call it. Okay, and you don't need to remember that. Just remember verified texting, okay? But let me at least tell you what it is. So let's start with what is P2P versus A2P? Person to person versus application to person. So person to person is you pick up your iPhone or your Android, you text someone, okay? Application to person is from a software product. So just know this only applies to, like, it's not going to apply to your iPhone, it's going to apply from software products and not just Brokerkit, any software products moving forward, okay? This is a standard that's real important because on September 1, 2023, which just passed, maybe you're watching this later and the dust is settled. Basically, what all the carriers said is that after that date, if you're sending a text from a phone number not linked to an approved A2P 10DLC campaign, that message would be blocked by the carriers. That's why this matters, okay? So then you're wondering, okay, I got A2P, what's 10DLC? Okay, we're going to talk about the next. So 10DLC is a 10-digit long code, which is a local number. Okay, so this is just saying like texting from software to a local number, as opposed to a toll-free number or a short code. Okay, so then who decides? Who's the decider here? Who sets all these? So TCR. So there's an organization the carriers set up called TCR, the Campaign Registry, and they have something called a trust score that they set, and we'll show you in a second. Where moving forward, to do A2P 10DLC texting, you'll have to register your business in a business profile, have it kind of approved by TCR, and then they will give you a trust score, okay? Which they're not really, to our knowledge, not doing any throttling based on this, but long term, they could throttle people with lower trust scores, so something you want to kind of keep an eye on. So how do you register? Well, we're going to show you in the tool, but you set up a business profile, you get approved, and then you get approved for use cases, and then you link your phone numbers. We'll kind of show you how. And then just a brief recommendation, we do recommend that you consider breaking up recruiting and retention. So text to recruits versus your own agents, they should probably be in separate use cases that you're just to kind of keep them separate. So with that, now let's go back into the product and talk about how does this work in the real world with our guru, Jenna, who's going to walk you through how to do this. So
Yeah.
Brokerkit, we're going to go to the phone number page. Okay. In Brokerkit, you're going to have your own, each user is going to have their own phone number. If you text or call out, you're going to call with this number. Okay. If they text or call back, you're going to go to the forwarding number. Your first question is, well, why can't I just use my own cell number? Well, let me just tell you why. It's because exactly these regulations, because they are putting these in place to block spoofing. The reason the carriers are putting this in place because offshore providers figured out how to spoof US numbers. You probably receive calls and texts on local numbers. Basically, companies figure out how to go outside the US, call and text those numbers spoofed, and get away with it because they were outside the US. Essentially, what the FCC did in combination with the carriers did was put this TCR organism in place so that anything that's not registered properly could be blocked. And you'll see a little green check here that says set for verified calling. We're not going to go through verified calling. We're just talking about verified texting, but know that they're, getting emails, texts, and calls delivered in the last year has gotten tougher. We can help you out. We have the mechanisms in place. We can explain it. We're just going to focus on texting today. So with that, now I'm going to go down to verified, where you register for verified calling and texting. And I'm going to turn it back over to you, Jenna, and then I will click for you, but you tell them, you drive and tell them what to do and how they get registered.
Yes. So we have created this in Brokerkit for you. It is going to lay everything out you need to get your approvals here. And what you're going to see first is this profile status page. So the verification process for verified texting, it's going to be 4 check marks that you're looking for. But for verified texting, you're really looking for that profile approved there under status. You're looking for verified texting. And this is just a test account, but you're looking for that to say approved as well. And then there's a third piece when we get to it, and that'll be your campaign. Well, for us, we call it the use case because we already have campaigns in our system. So we have a use case for you to fill out, and that will be what TCR, what Jim was mentioning, is looking at to see what you're communicating. And so he mentioned 2 different use cases. That's also a possibility. So that's what you're looking for under profile status. If you hop over to business profile, this is where you're going to get started. So we really recommend someone with knowledge of your business really is the one filling this out. We don't really recommend that you have an assistant or a VA do this, just because it needs to be your correct information. So the first thing you'll see there is your legal business name. This is the name that you used when you formed your business and when you applied for your EIN, most likely if you're a US-based company. And just kind of a note, this is mainly for US customers at this point. So we're kind of going off the EIN here, but that's going to be your legal business name. Whatever you used when you went ahead and you applied with the IRS for your EIN, that's what you're going to put there. And so it might not look like your DBA or your recognizable brand name. That's what you would put under your profile friendly name. So here you can see our business name is Fundamental Cloud Inc., but we are under BK Training. So that profile friendly name is likely what your clients or your agents are going to recognize. So for us,
Brokerkit. Keep in mind, everyone, this is like a test profile. This is not real data.
Yes.
So BK Training is not really, it looks weird because it's a test account, but like that would be what you really go by.
Yes. So if this were really ours, we'd have Brokerkit there. That's what we'd be recognized as, if this is ours. And then next, you're going to see registration type. We recommend the EIN because it is kind of the easiest and most universally used. So your EIN is going to go then in that business registration ID. You can see if you maybe don't have this, you're looking at your CP 575 is what's going to tell you all this information as well. So your business registration ID will be your EIN, and you can put that there. Your business type, you just select from the drop down.
Just let me pause for a second. So that CP 575, like you probably have no idea what that is. So I'm going to translate that back into human speak. So when you created your business and you registered with the IRS and you got your EIN number, which is effectively your tax ID number for your business, it's the letter that it came in. So it's basically a letter showing your business name and the EIN from the IRS. That's what they want to see, essentially.
Yes.
Any other letter from the IRS that has both the EIN and business name can also potentially work also. But that initial letter, although it may be hard to find, that's the thing that's the golden ticket here.
Yes, that is the golden ticket. That is going to have all of the information that's going to work for your approval here. The next will be your business website. So a couple notes on this, just make sure the website you choose is active. We've seen a couple that go to dead links and that's automatically going to be rejected. So make sure your business profile, your business website is up and running. And then also include the protocol there, that HTTPS. You want to include that. Without that, and we do have a tooltip kind of reminding you there, but without that, sometimes the links don't work properly for TCR when they're getting these approvals done. So that is a note. Business address is also your golden ticket. Your CP 575, that EIN letter is going to have the business address you want to use. It might not be the same address as your office address or something like that. It is what you set up your business with. So make sure you have that business address that matches your EIN letter, that information the IRS has on file for you. And then with that, business contacts is next. And so this is another part. This is also part of your profile approval. And so our biggest tip here is your authorized representative needs to be able to be linked to your business by a publicly available website. So that could be Facebook, it could be your business site, it could be even LinkedIn. We've seen, work for this. Just anything that verifies them as part of the business and ties it together. So they are an authorized representative and that can be verified. So there's nothing too tricky on that part, but just making sure that they are visible. Last thing we have here is the verified texting. So we have, you'll see if you are, filling this out, you're going to see some.
Maybe I'll start from scratch so we can start from scratch.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you first go to the page, this is the drop down you're going to see. which is you need to choose one of these, and keep in mind it's segments, not text. And this is because this is a requirement that we need to feed on to TCR. So for now, I'm going to just choose more than 6,000.
Yep. And then if you add the texting use case there, it's going to give you some examples in each of these. So the texting use case type, these are not, categories that we came up with. So you just kind of want to choose the one that fits you both. Most often we see customer care and mixed being used. Those are kind of the two that we see quite frequently. Mixed.
And customer care is probably going to be potentially retention.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Whereas mixed might be kind of like some recruiting messages as well. And keep in mind where it says add use case, I can actually add 2. You'll see this is use case 2. This is 1, and you can have different information, maybe 1 for recruiting, 1 for retention.
Yes, exactly. And so we'll leave it as mixed. So the first is that use case description. And you're just kind of telling what your use case is doing. Are you communicating internally with your team members? And that would be the one, if you chose customer care, you're probably more likely talking to your own team. If you're using mixed, you're going to, have text notifications, communicating with people interested in your team. You just want to be descriptive there of what you're using your campaign for. And then you're going to see sample text messages. So we really, really recommend that you swap these out for real text messages you're sending. We have these here, but we would rather you put your text messages in. That's what TCR is really looking for. They want to see messages that are going out with your campaign or your use case. So put your own messages in there, examples of what you're sending. And then this message flow is a key part. So in the message flow, you can see we have an example there. You want to tell how people are opting into your use cases. So how are they choosing to be part of your texts? And with that, what we have found is including the link. If you have an opt-in, form on your website, or you're using any kind of opt-in landing page, anything like that that has opt-in language on it, you want to put that in the message flow, put the link itself and explain how people are opting in. So they're visiting our website, they're filling out the form, and they're submitting it. So you put all of that in, put the link to the form itself, because they will check that. And then if you have opt-in language, any other part of your page, maybe it's at the bottom or it's not right next to the form, go ahead and point to that language in that message flow. So, you can say, see opt-in language at the bottom of the page, here's the form link, and kind of explain how people opt into this message. And then the last couple of things you'll see, the message contents. So you'll see that the message will include embedded links is automatically checked. So that is, Jim was actually kind of demonstrating this earlier. If you're including links in your text messages, or, there's anything that they're gonna be able to click, or even I think, Jim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this might actually be for videos as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All the videos would be that actually needs to be, and it's on by default. So please don't unselect it if you plan to send videos, or really any links in your text. That could be even in your email signature, a link to your website. Make sure it could cause it to get blocked if you don't put it in there. And let me just kind of explain why. So it's going to make sense when you think about it. So have you ever gotten a text, like a phishing text, that looks like it's from a bank like Wells Fargo, but it's not really Wells Fargo, and they're saying you have an issue with your account and they want you to sign? Well, yeah, it's not really Wells Fargo. They set up some fake phishing site. They're texting you, trying to get you to put your credit card information or your bank account information in it so they can take money from you, right? So that's why these things are going to be blocked unless they're tied to an approved use case, tied to a number that's approved and tied to your business. So they can keep that type of thing from happening. And if it does, they'll know exactly who did it, and there's accountability around it, right? And hopefully that gives you some examples of why this is not the most fun process. You're probably grimacing right now as you watch all this. Everybody involved is, but that's what's been happening, and that's why they're doing it.
Yep. And then you can also opt to message will include phone numbers. So you can use that one as well if you need to. That is not automatically selected, but if you do need to include phone numbers in your text, go ahead and select that. The last piece that we have that's really important here is the numbers available. So you want to select all the numbers that are going to send messages that are associated with that campaign. That might be all numbers, that might be all of your users, or it might be a handful or one. So if you have multiple, use cases, you might have one person that's texting your retention, and you might have one person that's texting recruiting, and you might apply those to separate use cases. Like Jim was showing, you can have more than one, so you might have two. So if you have two use cases, you want to put the phone numbers that are going to be texting for each of them on that use case. That is, again, so that the number is attached, and when you're sending text, they're good to go with the use case, and they're getting delivered, and everything is the way you want them to be. And so
just to recap a couple things. So you can go in and choose all phone numbers, but that's really only going to work if you have one use case. If you break it out, recruiting and retention, you need to do specific numbers, but keep in mind one number can only be in one or the other, and those numbers are tied to users. Okay. And then one other tip, all phone numbers, once you add it, if you add additional phone numbers, they're not going to be automatically added unless you come back, select all phone numbers again, and resubmit it after it's approved. And the reason is because if you have more than one use case, we don't know which to automatically add new phone numbers to. So something to keep in mind.
Yes, exactly. And if you are adding a phone number after you have an approved use case, it's going to be right away. You can go ahead and use that number as soon as you add it to that campaign that's approved.
Just know that if you go in and try to send a text from Brokerkit and it's not a phone number tied to a use case, that is approved, and it's going to show right here whether it's approved. That's showing draft. Once it's approved, it'll show approved. To send a text, the number down here it either has to be all phone numbers and it was selected, or somebody's specific number. It has to have been submitted. This has to have been approved. And back to here, you need the 3 green checks. So the business profile needs to be approved. And then verified calling is a separate thing that happens in parallel. That's a whole nother topic we're not going into today. But then verified texting, so essentially you need all those things kind of approved. And then moving forward in Brokerkit, if you're trying to text and those things haven't done, you'll get a yellow warning warning you to do all this. But this is all the steps you need to do so that the yellow warning goes away and you can send the text.
Yes, this is going to help you, utilize texting in Brokerkit. And if you do have any questions, our team is always happy to help. You can reach us at support@getbrokerkit.com. And we have live sessions as well. And yep, there's the email us. And if you go to that scheduled training as well, you can join Brokerkit office hours and walk through it live as well. We're more than happy to jump on. And so we have those Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The key part is you just really want to make sure that you're putting the correct information in that first time that you're submitting, so that you're expediting the process as much as possible.
And this is a lot of details. That's why we have the office hours. If you're kind of feeling a little overwhelmed by that, totally understand. Lots of people are. We will hold your hand through the process. Just jump on the office hours. We'll help you get, all the information collected and submitted and get you up and running.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's why we wanted to start out with the good stuff. Texting works really well for getting responses. Okay. There's a little more kind of administrative work needed these days than there used to be to get up and running. That's how you do it. But once you're up and running, it's going to be beautiful. And, you're going to be in that promised land of hearing back from, your responses from people. So with that, I'm going to jump back into the slides, and that covers hot principle number 5. Make sure you get your messages through with verified texting. So then we kind of went through that. I'm going to do a recap. Okay. So we talked about five hot principles. Let's recap the 5 hot principles. Number 1, cut through the noise with text and get replies. 2, make sure you use a up-to-date contact list, especially with recruiting. In real estate, messages go stale after a few years. Make sure you're using a current list. Number 3, carefully craft content. Make sure your messages stand out and are valuable to people. Number 4, monitor your usage. Make sure you don't have any huge surprise bills. And then 5, make sure they get delivered with verified texting. So that's kind of our key takeaways from today. Now we'll jump into some Q&A. So we're going to go ahead and look over in our little message window over the side here and see what people are asking. So let's kind of jump in. So
Jim, we have a question here. I'm just a user at my company. Are you sending this information to customers about this? And I'm thinking that's the registration.
Yeah. So there have been numerous emails and in-app messages notifying people about the verified texting process. This webinar is going to be recorded. Where you're going to be able to find this and send it to people in the future is if you go to Help Center, Brokerkit Academy. This is where we post our webinars. This one. These are prior ones. You can find them out there. If you're watching it now, I don't know where you found it, but that's where you can point people to it in the future. And if anybody has any questions, you can, of course, reach out to us at support@getbrokerkit.com or jump on one of our training sessions in our training calendar.
Yeah. And then we have another one, back to kind of our content and crafting messages. Any suggestion for texting time and day?
Yeah, so that to me goes back to the golden rules. So here's what we find works well. Number one, actually, I'll give you a short answer. So if you go to our campaigns in here, if you start a new campaign and you start it from scratch, okay, I'm going to hit a text. We, by default, send it only Monday through Friday between 9 and noon randomly, because that's a good time to get people. You're going to have a high response rate, and it's going to be a respectful time. The two key times would be probably in the morning or afternoon during the business days. Saturday for agents can be a good day. We do recommend you stay away from Sunday unless you know somebody well personally. Not a great day to text people that you don't know well. But so by default in campaigns, that's where we default to. You can change it to other times, not for sure, not in the evenings. And I would stay away from Sundays. And then just in general, if it's not this time, I would say kind of in the morning and in the afternoon. Right in the middle of the day, is not typically a great time to get people, because they could be at lunch and not want to respond, or they're at a showing or something like that, right? So think of like when they wouldn't be at showings, and that's a little unpredictable with agents, as I'm sure you know. So.
Yes. And we do have someone that shared that they've had success with Saturday texts. So definitely something to keep on your radar. All right, we have a couple more questions here. I've been waiting about a month for my number to be verified. And I can kind of speak to that a little bit. So TCR, as Jim mentioned, they had that September 1st deadline. And so as they've been working through that process of verification, it just takes some time to go through those applications and those verified registrations. And so right now we're seeing a bit of a delay. We expect that, as the dust settles, that'll kind of pick back up. But right now we're seeing anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks to get that verification all set. And then the campaign on top of that has to go through as well.
And that's September 1, 2023 that she's talking about. If you're watching this video quite a bit after that, hopefully those timeframes have compressed quite a bit.
Yes, and we have seen some changes, some movement on those. So we expect that they'll get a little bit shorter again. All right. So do you have any case studies you can share with us later or via email to those of us on this Zoom? And I'm thinking those are for the verified texting as well.
Yeah, not any specific case studies, but one of the things I might want to recommend is back to our campaigns. We do have a campaign library with some things to use. So a campaign for us is an automated sequence of call emails and tasks. Emails, texts, and tasks. The task could be for social media touches or calls, or anything else really, like onboarding tasks. We've got a set of both recruiting and some retention related stuff, like nurturing your current agents, onboarding, and not onboarding, onboarding. Yeah, so some of the things like that. And then on the recruiting side, co-op agents, things like that. So if you go in, take a look at those. That's in the Brokerkit library of campaigns. Note that we've got currently 45 and it's growing. It grew by about like 50% this year from last year. Notice that there's also a donated library. This is ones that our customers have donated. So that's 72. So that's like almost 120 between the two. And this will give you kind of a good idea of what people are doing out there. So I don't know if that's really exactly a case study or what you're looking for, but take a look. That might help you out on what some people are doing out there. So.
And it looks like we had one more question come in from that. Do I need a higher level access to run these campaigns on behalf of my broker?
Okay, great question. So in Brokerkit, if you go to manage team, we have 4 roles a user can have: admin, staff, agent, or affiliate. Agent affiliate's really a referral login. They're not going to see what you're saying. this view, the admin staff are going to really be the office staff. It's going to be the people involved in recruiting, onboarding, and retention. And you might be a staff user. If you are, the menu items up here will look different, and you may not have full access. So you might want to talk to your management team, your leadership team, and see if it makes more sense for you to be an admin versus a staff, which will enable you to see more functionality in the app.
Awesome. And it looks like that kind of rounds out our questions.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Jenna, thanks for being a great guest and being the pro on the verified texting campaigns, walking people through that. Hopefully you all got some value. Texting helps cut through the noise. Hopefully you have some tips on how to improve your response rate, whether it be kind of in recruiting or retention. Just get those agents to show up to their training events, right? It's these days, with as many messages you're getting from all these different platforms, you got to cut through the noise to make sure people hear you and you get those replies. Texting is kind of a key. There's a little more administrative work involved in getting those messages delivered these days, but we've got it all set up. We're here to help you. If you're a broker, if you're not a Brokerkit customer, sign up. We'll help you get through all that. And our customer success team is amazing, and they'll walk you through all that. And if you're a customer, reach out to support@getbrokerkit.com or jump on one of our our office hour sessions. We'll get you up and running. And that's it for today. Any parting wisdom, Jenna, before we end for today?
That's about it. Just getting people excited through text message and getting those messages read.
Awesome. Thanks so much for listening in. You're very dedicated if you're still listening at this moment at the end of the video. Thanks so much and have a great day.